I kind of forgot where I was. The DAS system, there isn't really any training on that, but today I want to swing by the head end, and basically they have a yearly maintenance they do. That's essentially the training. Give them a call every year and they'll come out and service it.
What's that mean?
The what?
Did you say BAS or DAS?
DAS, D-A-S. So that's the fire department antenna system that's in this building to boost their signal. So if the firefighters come in, it's deep enough in the school, they're not catching outside.
That's not the one on the roof?
Their receiving antenna is on the roof, and it's going some hill that way, a long ways away. It's coming in, and then they have a booster inside the building, and it feeds antennas randomly throughout the building. There's
basically
50, 60 of them.
Most new buildings have to have this DAS system now, and if they don't have it now, you at least have to plumb it in for a new building, and that is because fire departments, ambulances, they're requiring that so they can get a signal, especially when you've got parking structures 2 and 5 stories underground. So
this building didn't legally require it, but the signal wasn't strong enough, so it was a common sense thing to install it. Generator was on my list here. That's already been done. And this is just going to be like a general overview. I guess I don't know who everybody is. I know you're custodian, head custodian. I know Adam and
Lauren.
What position are you?
We are all electricians except for the custodian, so we're all the same.
Okay.
We're journeymen.
So okay. I guess as I'd mentioned to Adam, I'm probably not going to teach you guys anything like new. This is PPS standard on everything that's here, so you might be the only one that's like, oh, that's what that is. The rest of you guys and gals are going to be, no, that's stuff we already know. I guess on a general overview, I had thought to go through and basically think of a typical call you might get, like an outlet doesn't work. So on each outlet, it's going to be labeled with the panel number, and that's going to be the first set of numbers and letters, followed by a dash, and then it's going to have another number, which is going to be the actual circuit breaker number. So I wanted to swing by the electrical room in this area and actually look at that and say, this is the panel, this is the number, it's fed from this sub-distribution, and then actually walk back to the main electrical room, take a look at that, and then even looking where the PP&L power transformers are and where that's fed from. Just a quick finger point. Someone runs into that pole, it's going to get dark here on the school, or to somewhat. So that kind of covers the receptacle numbering system, how that's working. So this is getting a little bit into lighting, but it also is covered in general electrical. If it has a line voltage switch like these ones, it'll also have the circuit number. Some of these switches in here are the low voltage lighting control system. Those won't have a circuit number on them. But all general classrooms are line voltage switches. So we just have a typical power pack, aux sensor, light level sensor. Which this will actually, those are harvesting enough light so we're all the way shut off.
So just a general question, I'm a school teacher. Hey, these aren't going on, and obviously it's going to read the lighting, but I want a little bit more light. Is there a way that they can override the system and turn these lights on? You might get that question. I'm just saying the janitor Tim might get that question.
We're not going to change it. It's energy code.
Okay.
I mean, if you put a piece of tape on the light level sensor, it's going to see darkness.
When they come in this room, that light switch is off. The lights will not come on unless they flip the switch.
Correct.
It's not on a motion like the home.
These are on a motion detector. So these switches, for the most part, can be left on, and the lights will turn themselves on. I'd have to look back in the lighting control matrix. Some rooms are with energy code auto off, manual on. So now with a line voltage switch, it wouldn't do that, but that would be like a low voltage switch. You might walk into a storage room and the lights won't come on. You have to physically turn them on.
Energy efficiency, leave the light switches on at all times.
They all will shut off by themselves. Yeah. And then there's 2 switches here. You have one for the back of the class. Well, actually, during teaching, you might be doing this with the projector. So, but there is enough light in here without them on even. What was that?
Where is the motion sensor? Is right there.
This one's the motion sensor, and then the one over by the window is the light level sensor. So that's the one
Like
that's...
a controller box up above the ceiling?
There is not. This is a older system that I guess you would typically see. It's actually kind of bulletproof.
Yeah.
They don't have this big central controller. So yeah, there is a J-box up above the ceiling, and there'll be a power pack in it, then it's low voltage wire out to these other devices.
Vic, do you tend to locate those in one specific place?
Generally, yeah, we're coming up from here, and that'll be ran up. So if you popped one of these tiles right here, it's going to be right close to the switch.
Right? They're not labeled or anything, right? To see where they are.
They are not, no.
Okay.
There's numerous J-boxes up there, so if we're going through labeling, there would be labeling all over. But I think the HVAC has some, like their terminal units are labeled and stuff, the bigger items. So we kind of talked about that. I guess resetting a circuit breaker, everybody here probably knows, but on a typical circuit breaker, you're going to see the red, and obviously shut it off, turn it back on. The bigger breakers are not going to have the red indicator, though. I think most everybody's here is aware of it, but that's just kind of an easy thing to see when you open the panel up and look at it. With this, and this will be part of the theater lighting control, they have some different breakers in those dimmer panels and stuff that are not just your normal square D style breaker. So one other thing I guess I would mention, so all of the line voltage switches and obviously the receptacles, they're a plug tail style. So we have on our rough end, we've installed these, and the actual receptacle has no live parts on it. So the thought process for these is not maybe for electricians, but for in an office building, anybody could take it off. There's not any way you can get shocked by it. And they just plug in. I'm not sure how many are familiar with it. Once you plug it in, they're kind of a pain in the rear to take back off, which I guess is a good thing, but they do pull right back off.
And so this specific brand you have here at this school, and does the chassis match any other brand?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
If I was to guess, I would say no, though. You'd have to stay with the Pass and Seymour brand.
What brand did they use that Fabian?
It's the same.
It'd be the same,
Yeah.
yeah. We also wired Fabian, so it's going to be off our same typical. GFIs, I guess another one that comes up a lot. So these GFIs, they self-test every 3 seconds. So you don't need to do the per code, whatever it is, weekly or monthly testing. They'll do it automatically. If they do fail, there's a little LED indicator on it that will strobe, that you know that the GFI has failed, it needs to be replaced. If the little indicator light is off, it means it's working correctly. When it trips, the light will come on. So when you come in a room, maybe not this room, but lab rooms and stuff, you can easily see if there's a tripped GFI, the LED will be on. And you know it has power to it, so it's kind of a two-part deal. Let's see, so the emergency, from the generator, there's two systems. There's emergency and standby. So the emergency is going to be the red labels, and we'll look at the panels once we leave here. Standby will be yellow. That's actually PPS standard, so you guys are probably aware of that already, but if you do see those labels, that's what it is. This is going to be a little tough with everybody sitting out. I kind of wanted to just do a quick overview of where the electrical rooms and panels are, because they are spread out, and you're going to get a call from here and say there's a plug not working, where do I go? For the most part, they're in rooms, electrical rooms, but there is a few locations where they put them out in hallways, little cubby holes.
Would you say generally, like a zone would have, for instance, this is zone A, this wing of the building, and there's going to be an electrical room on ground zero floor and level 2 floor, right?
That's correct.
Most of the time, same thing, it's going to be a carbon copy over on zone D, which is the south wing of the building. Again, you're going to have and Vic will walk us and show us, but it's definitely worth getting to know the familiarity of the building and where breakers are, but for the most part, it's going to be in a room, for the most
Yeah,
part.
exactly, exactly.
Can I get a copy of that to my office when you're done?
Oh, absolutely.
I have
So,
it.
as I was doing this, I came over here to check if this room was open, and I realized I didn't have the boiler room panel on here, so I do need to highlight one more. But you know, they have them different places. The boiler rooms, that feeds the boiler room equipment, so it's a no-brainer in there, but I didn't have it on this. But yeah, you could actually have this copy. So real quick, this north wing, there's electrical room, which we're going to walk into, and we'll take a look at like this circuit breaker where it's coming from. There will be the feed for level 0, where we're at, and level 1 is fed off of 0. They didn't do an electrical room on each floor. But level 2 feeds 2, and then the roof, where the equipment is. So that was their mentality.
So level 1 has no panels?
It doesn't have this north wing electrical room. I don't know if you guys want to maybe crowd around here and kind of just take a look at this and see, just kind of go over it. We'll walk it. I don't know if we need to walk every one, but currently we're in this general classroom. I don't know if you want to swing in closer and point down or however it works. We'll be obviously covering quite a bit of ground. So anywhere there's yellow, we have panels. So like I had mentioned, we are in this corner classroom here. This electrical room will feed this area, and in different areas, it comes down how far it feeds, you know, it varies, but it'll also feed level 1 in the same spot. So this is an electrical room. There's an IDF room right behind it. IDF room is typically by standby power, so they had set this room up with a standby panel in the electrical room. Sometimes they put the standby panel in the IDF room, depending. I'm not sure the real reason for it. Boiler room obviously has a boiler room panel. That's the one I didn't mark. I'm actually going to put a little circle there. There's a satellite kitchen. I'm not sure we're actually using it. I think it's just kind of a spare kitchen right now, or maybe it'll be used in the future, but it has its own panel. Coming down, main electrical room is in C0.
Which I believe everybody in this room has been in there when we did the solar panels. Right?
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. There, right beside, there's an emergency electrical room, which you guys probably all were in when we did the auto transfer switches. There's one oddball transformer they put in this closet, and I should probably mark that one too. There's no panel in there, but just a remote-mounted transfer switch or transformer and a disconnect. Right here, and it's the only one-off spot where they've put the transformer in a remote spot. The IDF room directly above it was just too full. So coming down, this would be D, so this is kind of a mirror image of A, or this is the south wing. Same thing, electrical room. This one feeds level 0, some stuff on level 1. Gymnasium, electrical room here. MDF room is another one that we don't have any panels in there, but there's a lot of stuff in there. Down in the arts building, in the basement down the corner, there's electrical room. That electrical room is especially crowded, but that's just how the design went. So level 1 now, going back to the art building, no electrical rooms, that's fed off of 0. This north wing, same thing, fed off of 0. Kitchen itself has its own panels. I believe there's 4 of them in there. Coming around auditorium, so in this IDF we have some panels in there. This is the one that has that remote transformer that's below it. And this area right here, there's panels in the corridor, and I'm not sure why they designed it that way, but I think it's for this administration area. They just did it that way for whatever reason. But that's the only area where we have panels in the corridor. Counseling. Panels for the counseling is in the counseling area, but then like these classrooms here are fed off of 0. Right off the auxiliary gym, there's also some panels feeding this upper area of the gymnasium. And up to 2. These are the north wing and south wing electrical rooms feeding the main building here. The gymnasium doesn't have a level 2. And in the auditorium, this is the theater panels. And this is kind of up in that, I don't know what you want to really call it, just kind of a little cubby up there right off the stage. Then in the art building, panels are in this area right here, and the kiln room has its own panel. And Adam and I actually were going over that earlier this morning to make sure we had the kiln controllers wired in correctly. So then a typical set of as-built that will be turned in. When we originally go through, we'll go through and I'll give the electricians in the field where I want the circuits to come in, the home runs boxes, and then so they'll get the circuits to the area, and then once they actually wire the specific area, they're going to as-built where it's in and how they did it. In some cases it's just per plan, like a typical classroom like this, there really won't be any as-built because how the engineering team drew it is basically how it's wired. But areas that are, this happens to be the dressing rooms, dance studio area where it would be pretty hard for the electrical engineer to draw it up. We went through and did as-built. So in here, there's a only thing kind of, I guess, that you got probably not familiar with, obviously, the big line, the small line would be hot and neutral, but there is a type of MC we've been using that is dual circuit, so it has 2 hots and 2 neutrals in one cable, and that's what these double lines. So here we have, let's see, so here we have 9 and 11 coming out, so the home run box is here, comes in with dual circuit, and then it gets all the way down to the end, and then we switch to a standard MC cable with just 1 circuit. In this case it's 9 coming out. Pretty standard on the as-built. I don't really think we have anything that's surprising you. Lighting would be the same thing, shows the cables we're pulling where we're pulling to. So that's kind of it on the as-built. You will have a set of drawings. I think everybody's pretty much familiar with looking at the standard drawings where we're going to see, let's just use this one for an example. This is circuit 27, so you can always follow the line back, and we'll end up coming across to circuit 27 coming in, which I have actually highlighted here. But that'll give us the panel and circuit number. So I think next, I don't think I had, let me double check my list here.
And if I were you guys, could you deal with teachers on a daily basis? There might be crazy questions that they might ask. Maybe you don't know, I'm sure you've heard them all. But if you can think of something that is an oddball question or whatever that Vic could answer us, now's the time to go ahead and throw that out there.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed. I can put my business card on this. If something comes up, obviously call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are they all surge protected plugs in here or not?
There's surge protection on the main distribution. We can take a look at that.
Is there a surge protection?
There is.
I know
Yep.
now schools have surge protection plugs and non-surge protected.
No surge protection receptacles. Yeah.
You know, the other thing my company did on this job was come through all these rooms and do photographs of all the walls and all the ceilings. So between what he's talking about, that as-built, and PPS is going to have a full copy of all those pictures, you should be able to find whatever you need to regarding electrical or plumbing.
And Multivista does a wonderful job of labeling walls and
Yeah.
we have room numbers. And it's well worth the money.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you want to take us to...
Yeah, let's go to the electrical room. We'll look at this particular panel. Looks like we got a 2P00159. This will be probably crowded in here, so squeeze on in.
Another question for you. And I'm not going to plug in my scrub machine over here and blow the circuits in that classroom, right?
I hope not.
Oh, God. Like the old school, they're going to plug something in somewhere in the other part of the building?
Yeah, they have the circuits broke up pretty good. Yeah. Corridors are all separate. if you have multiple scrubbers in a corridor, you might have problems.
We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Most of them have battery packs running.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that with the little backpack vacuums too.
Yeah, we did. I've got a computer robot.
Forgot.
Doing mulch now.
Part of
But I want to make sure we're
Taking your job.
Where are you going to?
Probably actually, if you set up here, we're going to be looking this way.
This is the hall John went to.
Yeah, it's old now.
There you go.
All right. Sorry about the stuff in here. This will be gone, I promise, by the time you guys fully occupy the building. There's still, there's loose ends that are taken care of. So in, I think that circuit was 2P00157 or whatever it was. So 42 space channels typically. So we're going to have a trip breaker, perfect example. Looks like someone was using a saw or something on that circuit. So it's doing its job. 57, this would be that receptacle. And we got the 2P001. So kind of walking backwards from receptacle to breaker and on back. So these are, this panel's fed from this one is from this one, hence the fed from section 1 or fed from section 2. This will go underground to the, this is a 208 volt distribution. Everybody's probably aware, but on the first number is going to be the, if it's a 4, it's the 480 volt power. If it's 2, it's the 208 volt, 120 volt power. So this comes underground. This would be sub-distribution. So in here we have 2P001. Here's the main breaker for 2P001. The main breaker feeding this panel. And then this is underground fed, which is a long run of wire back to the main electrical room. So out of here, these are the panels for 0. Those panels right behind you are for 1. You can see the pipes going up. That's kind of a no-brainer. Coming around, this would be emergency with the red label and regular lighting. Besides, this would be like corridor lighting, classroom lighting, and stuff like that. And then this is the lighting control panel that you'll get trained on later. Only thing with the lighting control panel that I might want to mention now is the upper half of the panel is regular power and the lower half is emergency to keep them separated. So coming around here, we have orange or a yellow label here. This is going to be standby power, so we're bringing 480 volt out here and then feeding that panel. This is like the computers and stuff are fed off of that. IDF rooms.
Okay, can I stop you there?
Yeah.
I'm sure that people are interested in this, especially in video, but the difference between the yellow and the orange labeled items in terms of how it is fed with the generator, can you explain kind of how?
Sure. So there, at the generator, there's one 600 amp breaker. It feeds a 600 amp emergency panel. That 600 amp emergency panel then feeds the standby transfer switch, and it also feeds the emergency transfer switch. This is going to be all in the 277 480 volt range. So in the main electrical room, we'll take a little look at it, probably maybe explain it a little better, but we come around the room literally to the right, to the left. One is emergency, one is standby. And so the distribution on the standby comes out at 480 volt. We'll hit a local transformer and then feed the 120 volt panels. I don't believe there's any 480 volt 277 stuff out of the standby system that's just like feeding lights or anything. It strictly comes out, hits a transformer, and then goes to receptacles. There probably is something, but I can't think of it right now. But they're very minimal. So the emergency then, that comes out, does almost the same thing, but it does feed. So obviously emergency will be life safety. So that's egress lighting is its big job. So for the most part, there's no 120 volt stuff, like there's no transformer in here for the emergency. There is, I think, 3 exceptions to that, where we have some 120 volt stuff. The biggest thing would be in the MDF room, the IT racks, and the main fire alarm panel, that is fed off of Life Safety 120 volt. I think there's a few other NAC panels or stuff that they wanted to feed off it. So that's kind of the overview on that. But like I said, when we get down there, we'll take a look at it. The only thing else I could really mention in this area is this big pull box you see behind you. That is the feeders that come in and then they go up and weave through the building. Actually, the second floor electrical room doesn't stack with this, so it actually comes over and then up. So if you're wondering what that box is, basically pull box. I think that kind of covers it. One thing I want to mention as we're coming down, so the distance from the main electrical room to here is an extremely long pull. So we have in-ground pole vaults in the hallway, and I want to show them to you. You probably walked right over them and didn't see them, but it'd be good to point them out. They're a 4 foot by 4 foot in-ground vault, and then we had a lid made that it basically gets infilled with concrete, 3 inches of concrete. So like when you walk over it, it's just regular concrete is what it feels like. There is a seam like this around the cover, which is 2 foot by 2 foot. To access it, there's foam under it, so the caulk is like a 1/4 inch thick. So you'd have to cut the caulk, and then in each corner there's a threaded hole for an eye bolt where you could thread in, and if you have to pick it out. There's no splices in there. The wire goes right through. I don't expect anybody to ever go in there. If all goes well, no one will go in there, ever. Okay, let's take a walk. We'll take a look at that. Tour stop, right here. So the only thing I was going to mention here, this is our underground pole vault. So it did blend in quite well. And then there's one just this side of that glass over there too. Like I said, there's no splices in here, but if something happens, you got to pull in, please tell whoever's going to pull it in that this is here. The pipes are lined up. We actually pulled right through it, but this was like a backup plan if we needed it. But let's head over to the main electrical room. I don't know if you need to record this. I guess one other item that it would be like of a major importance is this trench line you see coming down here. So there's a duct bank of electrical with, I think there's 40 or 42 conduits, feeders coming through here. So if anybody gets crazy and decides to dig, don't let them dig here.
How deep are they?
They're about 18 inches below the slab here to the top of them, and then it's about it's 30 inches wide by 24 inches deep. You know, it's a spacing template that the pipes go through. And then when it gets up there, it starts going deeper, and then as it goes around, it's probably 2 foot deep when it goes into those vaults. So we're about 2 foot below grade. So like if you're cutting on the surface, you're not going to hit anything, but yeah, this would be a catastrophe. Okay. I think a lot of you have already been in this room with the transfer switches and with the solar. So this is the main panel coming from the generator. It feeds the standby, which comes around. That's the 480 volt distribution. 120/208 transformer feeding a 120/208 panel. Coming around this way would be emergency, and this is one of the panels that is a 120/208 volt emergency life safety panel. This feeds theater lighting, the 120 volt theater lighting. So that's about it for this room.
Can I ask you a question about
Yes.
standby and emergency?
Mm-hmm.
It's coming off the same generator?
It is.
And it's like, if they need to draw more power on the emergency, it shuts down the standby?
It does not.
So what's the difference between the...
It's fully rated, so it can handle full load for both of it. But it is a emergency feed from the generator to this 4-gen panel. So that is emergency, and then the emergency is feeding the... so the emergency system goes from the generator all the way through. And then the emergency system is feeding the standby. The standby load, I think it's a 150 amp service, a lot bigger panels for selective coordination so we won't get any nuisance tripping. It is really a light load. I mean, it's really feeding 120 volt plugs in the IDF rooms. That's it.
Well, what's the purpose of having both emergency and standby?
Code requires the emergency system. Once there's a coordination study that happens so they don't nuisance trip. But once we leave and go through the transfer switch, we need the emergency on its own. It can't feed any non-emergency systems.
And then the standby is like a supplemental load after the emergency loads have been satisfied? Is that the reason?
The system is fully rated. I think it's like I said, it was a 600 amp feed. It can handle both, but just as the code is written, once we get through the transfer switch and get down the line, you cannot feed any non-emergency systems with it.
What emergency and non-emergency is out there?
What was that?
He's saying what the difference is, like the definition of.
One is life safety, one is not. Like the IT plugs over in Zone A, if those go off, no one's going to die, potentially.
You have to feed it separately and label it all separately.
Yeah.
Call it standby instead of emergency.
Yeah.
So standby with a step lower than emergency, kind of.
Yes, correct. Standby would be like maybe you want a refrigerator to not defrost. That would be standby system where the biggest thing with emergency is the emergency lighting, your egress path.
We do have refrigerators on emergency, correct, or on standby here.
Freezers?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so, no.
Why
Are
do we
you guys
have?
noticing that these lights here in the hallway have battery backup as well?
It must have been. Yep, they do. That's a good point. Good eyes there. The design consultant, I didn't design it. They did, and I think it has something to do with the amount of time with the occupancy load of this area or egress out of it. They didn't want it because when the generator does the transfer, it's got what, 12 or 15 seconds or whatever it is that it does the transfer. They didn't want that. So they even in or code didn't allow them to have that. So even in the other lighting, there's UPSs in the electrical room, which I'll show you. So that the lights will stay on. They aren't. I mean, they might flicker. That's about it. So that is a very valid point, though. Those batteries will need maintained.
They always.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The intercom system, the microphone system for this building hooked up to the generator, emergency or not?
It will be. It will be because that's going to be a life safety deal. And that is the other 120 volt circuit or transformer and panels that are in the gymnasium. That's all fed from the MDF room, which is... So even this is the first job I've did where the fire alarm itself, when it calls out, it doesn't use copper line. It goes digital on the call out. So that's kind of a step in a different direction, but I guess that's going to be the new norm. So get used to it.
Do we have an emergency phone in this building?
There is, and it'll be right outside the principal's office.
There's emergency phone.
Yeah, and it has several phone lines going to it, hard copper lines. So if one doesn't work, there's a backup for it. There might be actually a backup for the backup too, I think. I think there might be 3 lines going to it. Well, let's take a look at the main electrical room.
What is the blue light in the...
It's for production time. When the theater is in production and the dressing rooms are down here, they will be using the blue light.
Is it switch to that somewhere then? Or?
That'll be on the theater lighting control. They'll go over that, but there is a switch for it, and whoever's running the theater will have the ability to turn those on. It's so their eyes don't get all dilated big, and then they walk on the stage and it's dark and they trip over something. They're trying to avoid that.
Yes, it's using a red light when you're doing it.
Yeah. So we had looked into, so this is going to be right behind you here, this breaker. I think the breaker we had, or the main distribution we had looked at over in where we were just at is, I can't remember, I didn't look at it, but it'll be one of these main distributions, this 2SDP4, 2 or 3. This will be one of the main breakers, and it's listed on that panel what breaker it's fed from. I just forgot to look at it. But this is the 120 208 volt service. This is a 2000 amp service. It has its own PP&L transformer outside. So most of the 120 volt loads are going to be originating out of here.
So if there's a major issue in the building, I need to kill the power to this building for all power, is it here?
It is.
Which one would I flip?
There's 2 of them. It is going to be the big handle here. This is going to shut off the 120 208 volt equipment, and then right there is going to shut off. The red button will be the e-stop for the this service. So there's 2 services here. This is a 3000 amp. Yeah, don't do that. You can make my heart go crazy when I see someone mess around with it. How close can I get?
So basically, this is one of the most important rooms. We make sure it's secure.
Correct.
It kills everything in the building on this stuff.
But even if you did kill everything, the generator is going to see that. It's going to fire up. It's going to turn on the emergency lighting.
Power this building off for some major reason. They kill this, the generator is going to power it back up.
And the solar. So there's a couple different shutoffs.
No, the solar's not, it's not a backup system.
Correct, but if it doesn't get...
It has a CAC.
Oh, it has a CAC, so it's going to shut off. Okay, yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
I was going to ask something. I forgot. Keep going.
There'll be time.
So at some schools, they line side tap the emergency power. So if we do just go, I've gone up to a school, I just turned off the main breaker and the generator didn't get going. That's not how this is wired up.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the generator will start.
It will start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, in here, so all the air handlers, all the big equipment is fed out of here, as you can see the labels. Farther runs, like going over to the art building, we're bringing 480 volt over there in a 480 volt sub distribution, and then feeding transformers to feed the 120 volt plugs in there.
This
As
doesn't
opposed-
run the other school then, the other building. This doesn't
Yes,
run-
everything comes in here. Yep. Let's see, what else do we have in here? We briefly talked about like the black box, the theater control is from here. The 2 white boxes you see there are inverters for emergency lighting. So those will have batteries in them.
So it's like a little UPS system.
It is exactly what it is. Yep.
So we got to maintain these batteries then.
Correct.
Are they flooded lead acid or? Are they...
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I honestly don't know on that. It came as a system. They're a sealed battery, I know that, but I'm not sure the other technical parts of it.
What is that control again, Vic? Is that main lighting in the school, or is that just
Where is what controlled?
the UPS? What's that?
So when this panel here loses power, the inverter will pick up.
And that's only for the stage lighting.
Correct. I think there's 2 circuits, one out of each panel. A black box, not stage.
Black box.
This room right on the
this
other
is the black
side.
box.
Stage would be above, and the
okay.
stage is fed off the
Okay.
electrical room up on level 2.
Cool. Are these unlocked? Can we open them up or?
I don't. We're currently. You can.
Is this for the battery?
You can feel free to open what you can. We're in the middle of. Excuse me.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of switching over from having everything locked, just to keep construction people out, to I think when we pulled our labels and stuff off, our warning labels, we basically unlocked it and we're done with the system.
The sprinklers in electrical.
In case there's a fire. I mean, if an electrical fire starts, no. But if there's stuff in here, combustibles in here, fire marshal requires sprinklers.
by code, we gotta get it wet. Wherever you got a spot here in this building, we gotta get it wet. No, that's right. I think when we're done in here, I think our last spot you take us is to just go show us where the
Yep.
gas is at. And just kind of a quick.
So, no, on our way out to the DAS, I want to show, obviously, the PP&L transformers and where it's fed from, and then we'll hit the DAS.
Please.
If there's any other questions or want to walk around, I don't think it's really worth going to each electrical room unless someone wanted to look at them, but what ends up happening is you start jumping from one to the next, and pretty soon you don't know where you are, and isn't it helping you at all?
There's no like disconnect outside that shuts down anything in here, and then
The solar has a disconnect.
just the solar, but that doesn't control the normal power.
Correct. Yep. So for maintaining PP&L, we'll need to access.
So yeah, if the sprinklers are going off in here, we're not going in here.
Correct.
We're calling this.
Please don't.
I was just wondering if there was like another switch outside.
There is not.
That was maybe a fence or something.
Yeah, they would probably pull the fuses on the primary at that point. Yeah. Okay, let's head up. Probably way over here, and then we might be able to see where the power's coming in at too with one. PP&L transformers, we shouldn't have anything to do with in there. This transformer is on this side is the smaller one. It's the 208, 2000 amp. This is the 480 volt, 3000 amp feed. Both are underground. Obviously, you can see where the meters are. So this power route essentially comes in like to where that white truck is, and it zigzags kind of over, and then it goes straight on the west side of the gym all the way to the street. There's a power pole there that the primary comes up, so that's kind of the route that it comes in. It does have warning tape on top of it, and it's buried in red CDF.
That's the main shut-off for the building, that pole.
That will kill the whole building, yeah. That's it for this. Let's run down to the MDF room and take a quick peek in there at the DAS head end.
I know it's.
The fire alarm in the DAS head end in here. This is really tight in here. So in the back corner here, we have the main fire alarm panel, which will be gone over a little bit later. But then there's also the DAS head end. So this is there's a phone number on here for AWS. They essentially will need, I think once a year and then it has a commissioning date and then annual test date. So they have a date on here when the next annual test will need to be gone over. She left me some notes here. She basically, I'll read this just in case there was something I missed, but it provides signal in the building for emergency rescue, fire, and police radios. It's just a booster for them. Annual inspection per fire code is required. It's a physical inspection of the cable and the roof antenna and the booster panel. There's an operational inspection, so they'll actually cycle it and make sure it works. And there's she wrote 20 grid operational inspection of whole school. I'm not really sure what that means, but basically she'll go around and check out the whole building. She has the date on here when it's due, which is also wrote on there.
We have nothing to do with it. They're going to come and do it, right?
I believe you will need to schedule them to come out. They may come out the first time because they know that this is their system is installed here. And phone number to call. There's also a phone number on there on the sticker. And then this is monitored by the fire alarm panel. So it has two alarms. It has an antenna fail and a power fail alarm, which will sound this. So if you have problems with it, it'll tell the fire alarm panel, I got problems.
So do you know who's supposed to test that? Is that one of us? Is that a special?
No, it'll be a specialty vendor. This AWS who installed it, they would be the first people I would contact.
The only thing we have to schedule. He said that they're going to come next year, but then after that we have to schedule it.
I would think the fire compliance officer would have that pretty much covered for regular schedule.
Yes, it for sure should be. And when they come out, I would say you would just tell them that you're going to put us on the next a yearly inspection for now and forever.
Probably that, I guess. So, yeah.
But yeah, your fire, whoever's tracking all that should be on it. Well, we can hop out of here. I don't really have anything else to run through. If there's any questions, though, I can make my best shot at answering them. This jumping around from the different receptacles is MC. It's not pipe. For the low voltage, we do have sleeves up with the low voltage cable in the sleeve. And the second one was about the neutrals. So all branch circuits have their own neutral. We're not sharing neutral with any other circuits. What did you have?
I think I answered it myself. I see an HDMI plate that combines with an ALS plate. Is that just for audio video projectors?
Yeah, the AV guys will cover it, but what we've essentially did is the teacher's computer will go here. It'll plug in down here, and then it's HDMI up to the projector, and then from the projector it comes out to the speaker in the classroom. But they'll get deeper into that when they do that startup. They'll give you all the details. A broad overview, that's what I have there.
What's the best way to remove one of these fixtures if we have to for troubleshooting or repair?
So on the canopy on top does come down, and you can see the slots because of the angles. So it does slide down a little bit. To be honest with you, it's not going to be fun. We had a specialty jack made, as like a 3-arm jack, that we had actually used to support the fixture while we were installing them, so we didn't have to have someone there trying to hold it, because it is pretty obnoxious. But it has a typical, I believe it's an octagon box there, and we went with, I think, a deeper one, just for the room for wiring. And then right along the top, right where you can't see, there's a metal hoop that the drivers and the LED boards and stuff are hooked to, and those do have screws that can come off, so you can pull some pieces up and look at it from the top to access the drivers.
Crazy question. These are fully sealed lights, right? Covered
Correct.
from the top, everything?
Correct.
The stuff can't fall in the light.
That's correct. Although, I'm sure if we come back here in 20 years, I'm sure a little fly is going to figure out how to climb in there somewhere, but they shouldn't be.
Duster, basically, dust them off.
Yeah, it's just an acrylic lens. It is not glass.
Just watch out for the sprinkler head.
Yeah.
That's pretty obnoxious. There's no way to...
So with that one too.
Yeah.
Sign.
Yeah.
Can you sell us that jack thing?
Yeah, we're not kidding.
Just F.E. Bennett away.
You shouldn't be doing maintenance on with LED. The lifespan is quite long. Yeah.
Yeah, we've heard that. 5 or 6 weeks.
I like the smile. I really do.
That's what they tell me.
Are they programmable drivers or no?
I'm not sure on that, but what I will say is, I think in the whole school we had 238 of these light fixtures. I want to say we had 2 that had issues that we had to
Could you
fix.
just replace the drivers?
Yes, yes, we
Okay,
can.
That's what y'all did.
Yeah, right from the top. You don't need to take the fixture
And
down.
like, can you order that from just like Plaid or North Coast, or do you have to go through the manufacturer?
No, it was. You should be able to order it as long as you meet the specs of it. Yeah, Platt should have them.
Any other
They should
driver?
be like 5 years warranty, or what do they have?
I honestly don't know the warranty. It's in the whatever the PPS standard or spec is required. That's what the obviously the warranty is.
So are we gonna get like a list of the different products that you guys like? Look
There'll be a closeout like keys, as-built drawings. Yeah, there's this big list of closeout items that will be provided. Yeah, and there is some spare parts. I can't remember what exactly there is. I know that the majority of the spare parts were for the theater, because it's a lot more specialized parts and pieces. Offhand, I don't remember exactly what that is, but yeah, there is a list, closeout list.
We don't have to pull the fixture down to replace the drivers. They're just like
No. Yeah. Yeah, the cables hang off of the acrylic lens, and the drivers attach separately to the acrylic lens. Yeah.
Any other questions?
How much do the fixtures weigh?
They're not that heavy. I want to say maybe 25 pounds. Yeah, it's not. They're not like a big heavy thing, but
Just awkward.
Yeah.
it is awkward to handle. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to clean fingerprints off there.
I got kids swinging on there. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
How much weight can they hold?
If a kid jumps on them, they're going to end up with a hoop around their head. Yeah.
Look, my new hat.
Well, with concluding this, the nice thing is now that you guys own the building, I don't have to escort you out. So if you guys want to wander around or want to walk into the show building, so help yourselves. just make sure you always are wearing your badge, as you know, with all your other schools,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
If anybody does want to look at electrical room or anything else or whatever,